It's live.
Okay.
It's live. That's what it says.
Yeah, it's live now. And so Heather, hi, how are you? It's nice to see you again.
Hi, Alexis.
Hi.
It's nice to see you too.
Yeah, this is the first time we have you in the Cali Java user group, Clojog.
Yes.
We thank you for being here. We really appreciate your time. We got like 50 minutes for your presentation and some questions from the audience.
Yes.
We are about 10 people in the room. We are meeting at the Universidad ICESI, which is one of our sponsors.
Yes.
And also, we are having an interpreter today. His name is Edwin, and I think he has some advice for us. Edwin?
Well, I already spoke to Heather about making some progress.
Yeah. Edwin gave me some tips on how to talk and speak and how to pause after a few sentences before we got started. So I will go ahead and do that. And thank you for inviting me today. I'm happy to talk with you and tell you more about Java and the JCP and Adopte JSR programs and how your Java user group can get involved. Maybe someday I visit you in Colombia in person, but today I present to you virtually. So thank you for including me.
Okay, sounds good. So start whenever you want.
Okay. I'll go ahead and share my movie. I have a 2-minute movie for you. This movie is from the start of Java 1, 2014 in San Francisco. So just a little pump you up to get started with Java. Hopefully you can hear this.
Java in the morning, Java in the night, never morning. If you listen to the code, because it can take your mind. Listen to the code, because the future is right. Java is what? Java got a dance. Java is Java. Java is what? Java got a dance. Security, popular, new technology, community, space is growing rapidly. Online teams, sexy Java developers, communities. Java is everywhere, all over the world. Java is everywhere, around the world. North America, South America, then Africa, then Antarctica. Java is yes, Java got it. Java is robust, Java gets it done. Java is cool. Java is touch screen in your smartphone or your best for your life or your happy single phone. Java in the morning, Java in the night, Java in the morning. You feel the inside. You have to listen to the code because it can't take your mind. Listen to the code because the future is right. Java is good. Java is awesome. Java is good. Java it remains number one because we love your fun. Java is good. Java everything all the time. Java is and Java is huge in the internet. Everything. Java is the glue.
Okay, can you still hear me? Yeah, there I am. Okay, so we used that at Java 1 to kick off the conference, so I thought I'd use it for your show today, for your event, to learn about the JCP and its role with Java and the Adopte JSR programs. So I have some slides here. Can you see my slides? Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So my presentation, can you still hear me? Are you still
we're here.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, and you can see the slideshow. It's just the slide, right?
Yes.
Okay. So My name's Heather VanCura, and my job is to engage with the community, all those folks that you just saw in the video, and evangelize and engage the community in participating in the Java community process and Adopte JSR. And just to get started, just to give you a little bit of context, so Java is around the world, as the video just said. You know, we have 9 million Java developers currently around the world, running on billions of devices, desktops, Blu-ray players, Java cards, and TV devices running Java all around the world. And there's really 3 things that kind of are unique to Java that make it so ubiquitous, which is it's a proven platform, it's flexible, and it's open. And the scalability of Java is truly a unique feature. And in this graph here, you can see that the range of devices that run Java start very small with the Java card and go up through embedded devices running Java ME, Java SE embedded, as well as Java SE on the desktop, and Java EE, the Enterprise Edition, on the servers. So it's scalable platform. And one of the other tenets that we have that make Java so unique compared with other languages and platforms is the compatibility of Java. And that's one of its core strengths, and that's one of the things that the JCP focuses on and adds value in continuing to ensure that Java is compatible across platforms and devices and around the world in the implementations that are deployed internationally.
Heather?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Presenting the slides are not. We're in the first slide yet.
You're on the first slide?
That's correct.
You can't see the chart that shows Java card and the servers?
No, we don't.
Oh, so you're not seeing my screen anymore. Okay.
There it is.
Now you can see it? Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's strange. Okay. All right. So did you see this slide? So slide 3, just some facts and figures, Java around the world. And I'm going to share these slides with you so you can have these numbers for later. I'll upload them to SlideShare. It's SlideShare. My username is Heather VC. So 3 things really that make Java so ubiquitous. A proven platform, it's a flexible platform, it's an open platform, runs across billions of devices around the world. And some of the key differentiators for Java is the scalability, and the next graph shows you that scalability. Slide 4, running all the way from Java cards, very small, through the embedded devices on the desktop with Java SE, and on the server with Java EE, the Enterprise Edition. And the core value proposition of Java always has been and continues to be compatibility. And the JCP plays a primary role in ensuring compatibility and ensuring the safety of compatible implementations that are developed and deployed across those billions of devices by people internationally, from Java cards all the way up through the Enterprise Server Edition. And we do this by collaborating together with the international Java community through the JCP. So the JCP is about community development of Java technology specifications. So it's the Java Community Process Program working together with the international Java developer community that ensures the compatibility of the platform and the ubiquity of the platform around the world and across those billions of devices. Just to give you a little bit of history, since Java was launched almost 20 years ago, we're coming up on the 20-year anniversary of Java later this year in 2015 in May. But in 1995, Sun Microsystems developed Java, and very soon after Sun developed Java, they started engaging with the community very informally, but in 1999 we formally put together the Java community process that exists today. We opened up the development process, included developers around the world as well as competitors of Sun to work together to evolve Java technology through the JCP. And in 2006, Sun made the decision to open source the technology developed through the JCP, the Java SE and Java EE, so the Java Standard Edition and the Java Enterprise Edition. And as you probably are aware, soon after that, in 2007, Sun ran into some financial difficulties, and Java was in a period of stagnation where we didn't have any major milestone updates to the platforms. But in 2010, Sun was acquired by Oracle, and Oracle became the official steward of Java technology and the chair of the Java community process. And that's the organization that I support, the Java community process. So once that happened, I should pause here just to make sure you're caught up there in the room. Just pause for a minute.
Yes, we are okay.
Okay, so bringing us to present day. So now, 4 years later, where are we? So Oracle acquired Sun Microsystem and put some new energy and funding into Java, and as a result, the JCP, which started to move Java forward. So since 2011, when the acquisition went through, we've had new revisions of each of the 3 Java platforms, Java Standard Edition, Java Micro Edition, and Java Enterprise Edition. And we also initiated an effort called JCP.next to reform the Java community process and improve the way it operates, and also engage more thoroughly with the Java developer community through new initiatives targeted at Java user groups such as yourselves. So I'm going to walk you through kind of those reforms here, and then talk a little bit about the initiative for the Java user groups called Adopte JSR. So Oracle as Java steward, Oracle did come on board and recognize the value of Java to itself as well as its competitors, and also recognizes its value that it derives from the JCP and having an open and collaborative standards-based process to develop Java. And this has continued to push Java forward and moving it forward and evolving these new platforms, and also to opening up the JCP and making it more transparent to the community, and ensuring that the Java implementations continue to be compatible and safe for consumers to implement them as developers in the marketplace. So really what we're doing here is working together, the JCP working together with Oracle, such as yourselves, which is great that I have this opportunity to engage over the computer with you in Colombia as I do with Java user groups all over the world. So I'll give you a little bit more about the Java community process to start. So as I mentioned, it's the collaborative process for developing Java. We do that with Java specification requests, and you probably have heard the jargon or acronym of JSR. So that's the primary work of the JCP is to develop JSRs. Theirs are developed through a formal process, and Oracle, as well as other large companies such as IBM, HP, and Red Hat, are active participants on these JSRs, as well as open source and developer communities such as the Eclipse Foundation, Apache, and various Java user groups around the world. So the JCP has an executive committee, which is like our board of directors, and on slide 12 you can see the current members of the executive committee of the JCP. So this is our executive board, our executive committee, our board of directors, so to speak. We have a couple of Java user groups currently on the executive committee. I'll call those out to you. So we have SoJava in Brazil, and we have the London Java community based in London. And then a couple of individuals, as well as open source organizations. We have Eclipse, organizations, larger companies that I mentioned. Some embedded representation, desktop representation, as well as some enterprise edition representation. So pretty broad-based community representation that we have on the executive committee to help us make those important decisions. So the reference implementations of Java SE and Java EE are also developed collaboratively. So each of the platform editions has a reference implementation. The spec for the platform editions for Java SE and Java EE both have a corresponding open source reference implementation. So for Java SE, that would be the OpenJDK project. That is the current reference implementation for the spec of the Java SE platform. And for Java EE, for the JSR for Java EE, there is a corresponding reference implementation for that specification, and that is Project Glassfish. So that just kind of ties the two things together for you. So we have JSRs, and then we have reference implementations. For each JSR, there's a reference implementation. So why would you want to participate? Some of the primary benefits for participating in the standards process of the JCP are to acquire knowledge, to make Java better, to add experience and skills to your resume or your CV, and to help you increase your professional visibility by contributing to curriculum, articles, workshops, or presentations. And by doing that, you become a little bit more well-known within your network and growing your representation and reputation around the world. And of course, you're making the future versions of Java, so that can be an altruistic endeavor to make the world a better place and have a better version of Java available for you as well as your fellow developers to use. So really, we're creating the future together with Java. We've done this for the last 15 years with the JCP. We recently, in 2014, celebrated 15 years of the JCP, and as I mentioned, later this year in 2015, we'll be doing 20-year Java celebrations. So it really is the JCP working together with the international Java developer community. We need to work together in order to ensure that Java continues to be relevant and vibrant and ubiquitous and available on all of the billions of devices that I mentioned. So I mentioned earlier we've had 3 major upgrades of Java since the acquisition. I'm starting to hear some feedback. I don't know if you hear that as well. So just to summarize, we have Java SE, which was JSR 337. That was launched about a year ago in March 2014, exactly a year ago to be more precise. So JSR 337 was the Java SE8 platform. So lots of good stuff in there. A new date and time API, which was highly anticipated, as well as the introduction of Lambda expressions and annotations. Lots of really cool things in there. Probably one of the most anticipated and widely adopted Java SE platform updates ever. So very successful launch of Java 8. Hopefully you've had a chance to check out some of these new features and play with Java 8, but we had that released, as well as a new version of Java ME, which hadn't happened in over 7 years. So a major update to Java ME with the Java ME 8. The embedded profile, as well as an update to the CLDC, which is the Connected Limited Device Configuration. So big update there. And in 2013, obviously, we had a major update to Java EE with Java EE 7, and we're currently now working on the next version of Java EE, which is Java EE 8. So lots of cool things in Java EE 7. If you haven't had a chance to check those out, I encourage you to do so. We had some new technologies like the Java API for WebSocket, Java API for JSON, as well as the batch applications, JSR 352, and then many updates to some of the existing technologies that had already been in Java EE. talk a little bit more about Java EE8 as I start to get into how to participate in the Adopte JSR program. So those are things that the platform releases that we've had in the last couple of years, technologies developed through the JCP. And as I mentioned, we do this through Java specification requests, or JSRs. So each JSR is led by a JCP member. Anybody can join the JCP and participate as a member. In that role, they can serve as a spec lead and work on the expert group, helping with the day-to-day decisions and work of the JSR. And each expert group at the completion of their JSR has to deliver 3 things. I mentioned the specification and the reference implementations earlier. The other deliverable for each JSR is a test suite. So that's the TCK, which is a term you've also probably heard. We use another acronym for that. TCK is a Technology Compatibility Kit. So on the next slide, I show you graphically how these put together. So each JSR has these 3 deliverables.
Hey Heather, it's Edwin, the language dude. Can you go a tiny bit slower, Heather?
Yes. Yes, right. I'll go back to this slide so you can take a minute and I'll slow down.
Yeah, just go as you're doing great, but just a little slower so I can have time to interpret all that. But just, you don't have to take pauses. Just speak a little slower, and that way you don't have to do pauses.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so just do what you were doing, but just a tiny bit slower. So go ahead.
Got it. Perfect.
Thanks a lot.
No worries. So we have this compatibility triangle. So here you can see the 3 deliverables that we have for each JSR. We have the specification, the reference implementation, and the technology compatibility kit. So in most cases these days, the specification and the reference implementation are developed in tandem. So, but the purpose of the reference implementation really is to tell us if we can build an implementation of the specification. And then the TCK, obviously we run the reference implementation against the TCK, and that tells us if the reference implementation is conformant to the specification. Is the TCK correct, and does the reference implementation conform? And then between the TCK and the specification, sometimes when we run a reference implementation against the TCK, we can find out if there are any areas of ambiguity in the specification. But primarily the purpose of the TCK is to run the reference implementations against the TCK and determine if they're conformant. So we have the first reference implementation that's delivered as part of the final release of the JSR, but then we also can have independent implementations. So people other than the spec lead can also take a look at the specification and develop their own independent or clean room application, which doesn't take any code from the reference implementation. It's their own independent implementation of the specification. And then they would need to take their independent implementation and also run it against the TCK. And that is how we get compatible implementations, and we ensure that any implementation that claims to be compliant with a specification actually is compliant with a specification and doesn't break that compatibility. So really core value of the JCP in Java here really is represented with this triangle and showing how the 3 deliverables of the JCP for each JSR work together to ensure the compatibility of the Java platform. And each JSR has a development cycle as well. So every JSR has to go through the same cycle and get the same approvals, whether it's a platform specification or an optional specification. It goes through the same formal review process, and it is voted on by the executive committee that I showed you earlier, who the current members are, and those are members that are elected by the Java community process membership. Every year we have elections in the fall time frame, which usually is in October, where we have a certain percentage of the EC that's up for election every year. So you can follow that and see if there's anyone that you think should be nominated or cast your vote. as a member of the JCP. So we have kind of these different phases shown in the life cycle here. We have initiation, where a JSR is first approved and forming their expert group. And then we have the early draft and the public drafts, where we get another vote after the public review draft, and then a proposal for a final draft, which doesn't have a formal review or vote, but that's saying here we are, we're almost ready. And then at final approval ballot, we need all 3 of those deliverables for the EC to cast their final vote, and they would publish their RI, their spec, and their TCK, and then they would go through a final release of the specification and then release that product to the market. And there's also a lightweight maintenance process for any errata changes, or little minor bug fixes or typos, that kind of thing. And that's a maintenance in the final phase, which is optional phase. If there's a new version of the spec where we're adding new features, we go back and we start over with a new JSR for initiation. So on slide 24, I can show you just kind of, this is how the organization looks like. We have our members and Java developers here, and they can nominate themselves to serve on these. Each circle here is really representative of a JSR, so it's led by a spec lead, and we have expert group members made up of the membership here that are working together with the spec lead, and they're going on concurrently. Sometimes they work together, but they're primarily, spec leads are working with their expert groups. If it's a platform release especially, obviously the platform spec would work quite closely with the component JSRs that might be a part of that platform. And then we have the executive committee. So the executive committee would vote on all of these JSRs 3 times throughout their life cycle. And the executive committee is run by the chair of the JCP, who chairs the meetings. That's my boss, Patrick Curran, and then I would head up the program management office. So we're working together with the community, helping the spec leads along with their work, helping to support the community, as well as contributing to the work of the executive committee and helping them in their process to vote on all of the specifications, as well as help run the meetings that we have. So who does what? I talked to you a little bit about that just now, and I'll slow down because I think I'm starting to talk a little bit faster. But we have my group kind of manages the day-to-day operations, and then we have the executive committee doing the voting on the JSRs, as well as helping us to define the JCP governance and membership terms of the JCP membership. And we have our expert groups that are writing the specs, developing the RIs, as well as the TCKs in their work on the JSRs. And we have our members. And the members review the specs, may participate in expert groups, but don't have to, and can actions that we have every year. So right now, our executive committee was merged recently into one executive committee. We have 25 members. Oracle has a permanent seat that's included on that 25 member number, and 16 of the seats are ratified, 8 of them are elected, and every year half of our members stand up for re-election. And this picture I took at our last face-to-face meeting, which was held at Freescale. One of our current JCP members, that's Mullen, there in the front. He works at Freescale, so we rotate our meetings. Every year we meet at least 3 times face-to-face, usually 4 times face-to-face. So we had this meeting in San Jose. That's me over there. That's Patrick. There's Bruno from Brazil with Juggy. You might recognize him. So there we are, just to give you a visual. We've got the spec leads. Those spec leads are responsible for developing the JSRs. Oracle's the spec lead for the 3 platforms. Then we have our expert group members. I'm not going to go into detail for every single one of these just because we don't have time, but you can review this offline if you want. So what the expert group members do, basically they're recruited by the spec lead and they work on the JSRs. And our membership, anyone can join, as I mentioned earlier. In this URL, you can find out how you can join. You can join as a commercial organization, which is a company. You can join as your Java user group, or you can join as an individual Java developer. We currently aren't charging any fees. We used to charge fees for companies to join, but we're waiving that fee now since we're planning to eliminate all fees in the later part of this year anyway. So if any of your companies are interested in joining, let me know and I can help you through that process. But you would get started here at this URL on the participation and membership. Our members right now are about 75% individual. We've actually had a large increase in our corporate membership since I started waiving the fees last year. So this number might be up to now about 30% corporate. We have about half of our membership in North America, about a third in Europe and Russia, 13% in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, and about 5% in South America. So that's an area I'd like to see grow. So I'm happy to talk with you here in Colombia about how to participate, since most of the South American participation is coming from Brazil right now, so I think it's important to grow and expand into other countries in South America. So any thoughts you have on helping us expand are appreciated if you want to share that with me. But you also can participate in the JCP as an observer. Some of the changes that we've made to the JCP really do make all of the work of the JSRs and of the Java community process more transparent and open and available to anyone in the public. So as observers, you can make Java platforms, both Java EE and Java SE, the most community-driven platforms to date by sharing your ideas and your feedback, possibly entering issues into our public issue trackers or our public discussion forums. We have those for every one of the JSRs that are currently operating under the newest version of the JCP. The expert group discussions are open and to the public. Don't need to be a member to view those. You can read early versions of the specifications as well as the Java docs. You can try out early access versions of the reference implementations, so since those are now developed out in the open. And you can also help us by writing and speaking locally about the technologies that you're passionate about and that you're following, and encouraging others in your local community to participate as well. So I told you I'd tell you a little bit about our current effort to evolve the JCP. We use the JCP process to change the JCP itself. So as I mentioned, it was initiated 15 years ago, so we go through a process of evolving the JCP to meet the needs of the Java developer community. We do this through an effort that we started about 5 years ago called jcp.next, and the first thing that we did with this effort was the first step, jcp.next.1, which what we did was eliminate the smoke-filled rooms, which is what this graphic represents, smoke-filled rooms. So rather than allowing the JSRs to operate with their expert groups behind closed doors, we mandated that they do their work out in the open, and that's why as observers you can now view the documents, the reference implementations, the public issue trackers, the public discussion forums for every JSR that's developed, which wasn't previously the case. The next step we did was we merged the two executive committees, so it didn't necessarily make sense with the convergence of Java into really one platform versus all of the specialization. We didn't think it made sense anymore to have two separate executive committees, so we merged the two executive committees back in 2013. So we now have the one executive committee that I shared more information about with you earlier. One executive committee for one Java. And we have our third step, which is a more significant step to evolve the JCP through modifying our membership agreement, which is called the JSPA. That's the membership agreement, what you would sign in order to become a member of the JCP. That agreement hasn't been significantly changed since 2002, so we started an effort to modify this agreement. Since it is a legal document, it takes longer to do, and so we think this will take a couple of years, additional time to go ahead and get this implemented, but it is an effort that the EC spends a significant amount of time on in terms of defining new intellectual property rules and licensing policies for Java. So that's something that the Executive Committee is currently working very hard on. In the meantime, we decided that we wanted to start a fourth effort to spin off some of the more simple membership-related changes that we can implement more quickly that were coming out of some of our discussions about modifying the membership agreement. So this next version of the JCP will focus on these things here that I have on slide 39. So this really focuses on broadening the JCP membership. So we'll be looking at how can we encourage more individuals to join and participate in the JCP while at the same time ensuring that we have the appropriate IP commitments. So what we've gone ahead and done with JSR 364, which is currently in public review, so it's moving along through that JSR development process that I told you about earlier. We hope that it will be finalized in the summertime this year in 2015, but we're introducing a new membership class for individuals, which instead of having individuals sign the full 11-page membership agreement, the JSPA, there'll be a one-page agreement, and that agreement for individuals will no longer require an employer's signature to join, so they'll join as associates. I have here affiliates, but we've actually changed that term to associates. And we'll have a new partner membership class for Java user groups. So again, Java user groups can join just by signing a one-page agreement, a long 11-page agreement that doesn't really make sense for a Java user group anyway. And we're going ahead and we're eliminating all of the fees for corporations, like I mentioned earlier. So that will be the next version of the JCP. It will be JCP 2.10, and that should be rolled out in the summer, so stay tuned for updates there on that. So with this evolutionary process of changing the JCP through JCP.next, we see that the JCP is more open than it was before. We have public schedules kept current. We have publicly readable, writable wikis for the JSRs, public discussion forums for the JSRs, public issue trackers for every JSR, and the executive committee voting on the JSR 3 times throughout the life of the JSR, and public results as well as public reviews 3 times. And we're definitely working with the spec leads, encouraging them to release their specifications early and often so that the community can get up to speed as quickly as possible with the changes that are being discussed and implemented in their current versions of their specifications. So that brings me to the final part of my presentation, which is how can you participate? You can participate as an individual, as I mentioned, but really as part of a team it's even better. So I'm glad that you're here today listening to me as part of your team and your local community, working together through your Java user group, because you can help each other, teach each other, and work together with each other. And the initiative that was started by a couple of Java user groups is called Adopte JSR. It's a Java user group-led initiative to help us to improve these Java standards and to engage with the work of the JSRs. And the JSR program, Adopte JSR, has its own wiki page on java.net, so you can find out more about the program there, but I'm going to give you some highlights here now. So there's a pointer there on slide 42. This initiative started about 3 years ago, so we had Java EE 7 was really the first edition of Java EE, where we had engagement from the Java user groups from around the world, and these were some of the primary Java user groups that helped work with us on Java EE 7 and Java SE 8. They were highlighted prominently in the launch events that we did for those platforms for both Java EE 7 in 2013 and for Java SE 8 in 2014. And we want to continue to do that for the new versions of Java EE 8 that recently started late in 2014, as well as for Java SE 9 that's just now getting started through OpenJDK, and we have one JSR already filed for Java SE 9. So this is an opportunity to get involved, work together with these Java user groups around the world. Now I think there are about 30 JSRs signed up and participating on the wikis on at least one JSR. So it's great that we continue to see that involvement to grow, but we know that there are almost 500 Java user groups around the world. So we want to continue to see the growth around the world in all the different regions, similar to what we had with Java EE 7, but we want to grow and expand it even more. So one of the first things that you can do is talk amongst yourself and decide what are some of the areas of interest in your local community. What are some of the technologies that you're passionate about that you would like to follow and contribute and share with the spec leads and the expert group members, things that you would like to see and help them to do testing and file bugs and follow the discussions. So I've put here on slide 44 some of the recently submitted JSRs. We have obviously the EE8 spec, but that's really kind of an umbrella spec, so I would encourage you to take a look at some of the component JSRs that we have that have been filed. So we have a new version of CDI. We have a new spec, the JSON binding spec, so that's a new technology to Java EE, an update to JMS, Java Message Service, an update to the servlet spec, and update to JAX-RS. Another new one is the MVC, so that's a new technology to Java EE, the platform. So the MVC one is very popular. And we also have updates to JSF, updates to JSON P, which was a new one in Java EE7. We have a new JSR, which is security. Java EE management is kind of an update to an existing specification as well. So those are the component JSRs for Java EE8 so far. And then we also have a couple of other things. We have one of the first Java SE9 specifications that's been filed and approved, and that's JSR 376. That's the modularity JSR, so that's the JSR that will introduce modularity to the Java platform that's planned for Java SE9. There will be other JSRs that will be part of Java SE9, but they haven't been filed yet. We expect them soon. And then there's a standalone JSR that's been filed. That's JSR 377. That's the Desktop Embedded Application API. So there should be something there for everyone. Hopefully you can discuss at one of your next meetings which one of those JSRs might be of interest to you. On slide 44 and 45 and 46, I give you some ideas on once you pick that JSR, what are some of the things that you could do to start participating and contributing to that JSR by, quote unquote, adopting it. You can interpret that term as loosely as you want. It's really, you can put into it as much as you want or as little as you have the time to put into, but we do encourage you to communicate with the spec lead and let them know what it is that you want to do so that they can be aware and they can be looking for that from you. So it's really, as I mentioned earlier, a two-way street. It's you communicating with them and looking for a response back from them in terms of indicating, yes, that sounds good, I'd like to have that, and then finding out, what's the time frame for that. So if you ever do have any issues getting a response back from a spec lead, I ask you to let me know because I can follow up with the spec lead since that's part of my job to work with them on a day-to-day basis. So. What are some of the things you can do to get started? You can view the conversation on the public discussion forum. You can comment on that as a member of the public. You can let them know that there's some things that you want to do, whether that's evangelizing the JSR or giving a talk at your local user group or getting involved and helping with some of the documentation. That's kind of an easy thing to do in the early stages. Helping to improve the visibility of the JSR and the project wherever it's being hosted. A lot of them are on java.net, but some of them are on GitHub or other places. Comment on the drafts and the issue trackers. That's a really valuable thing. Wherever possible, you can tag that by saying you're participating via Adopte.JSR. That helps me to tag it with the hashtag Adopte.JSR to see who's contributing and helping in these discussions through Adopte.JSR, because that will help me in the end when we do our launch event to go back and talk to some of the Java user groups. So communication really is key. Communicate with me in terms of what you want to do, communicate with the spec lead in terms of what you want to do, and then also communicate on the Adopte.JSR wiki page, the URL that I gave you earlier on slide 42. Indicating that you're interested in it. And it's fine to have multiple Java user groups participating on the same JSR, and it's actually better to kind of give that international perspective to the JSR, so you can have people from South America, people from Europe, people from Africa participating on the same JSR and giving their different perspectives, as well as, if you want to translate things into your native language, you're free to do that. If it's not something that's important in your region, that doesn't need to happen. I know particularly for the Brazilian Java user group, So Java, they like to translate a lot of the content into their local language. They like to have it in Portuguese, so it really varies based on the Java user group. And as the JSRs get more advanced, you can start to organize hack days, and that's something that we did a lot of around the Java launches for Java EE as well as for Java SE, organizing hack days to test out the early RA builds and help them find their pain points and suggest feature enhancements. You can also build sample applications. You can help with building the RI, or you can help with building the TCK. That doesn't necessarily work so well with the Oracle-led JSRs, but some of the standalone JSRs, like the money and currency, they're building their own TCK, and they actually were looking for help with building out their TCK. That's JSR 354, which is getting pretty far along. They're almost finished, but that's one that still could use a little bit of help in terms of testing, is JSR 354, the money and currency API. That wasn't listed in my slide 44 of new JSRs because it's pretty far along, but it's one of those that really has done a good job of embracing and harnessing the power of the community to help build the RI and the TCK. And so there's probably still some work that can be done there in terms of testing or organizing a hack day if you wanted to do that around JSR 354. So this is my concluding slide, or one of my concluding slides. Really, links for finding some more information and how to stay in touch with us through the JCP and through the Adopte JSR communication channels. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be sending these to you so you can use these as a resource later. But I want to conclude with just thanking you for taking the time to bring me to your meeting and having the interest to want to learn more and contribute to the JCP and the Adopte JSR program. And I want to open it up for your questions, or if more questions come up after this meeting, I encourage you to connect with me via Twitter on either the Heather VC handle or the JCP handle. I do both of those, or email, or wherever is most comfortable for you, Facebook, Google Hangout, whatever. I'm pretty much on everything. So at this point, I turn it over to you for your questions.
Okay, thank you, Heather. It was a lot to cover in less than an hour.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you know, it's really important, the information that you give us, because when you start developing Java, sometimes you don't really know where the new features come from, who decides the new features. You don't know any of that. You just develop with Java, you know.
Yes.
So we're glad that the JCP is more open than before, and also that it's getting closer to the community, so we can participate and get to know the new features in advance. I didn't mention this before, but we already are observing the JSR 354, currency and money. And today we deliver a presentation about JSR 363, unit of measurements.
Yes.
Especially in the first one, we have done documentation in Spanish. Also, we run some tests from the spec lead developed some tests, and we run them, and we gave feedback to him, and it was really interactive and helpful. I got a question regarding of that. Do we need to sign the JSPA agreement in order to continue this kind of help with documentation and running some tests and downloading code? Because I'm not really sure what is the JSPA for, or when should we sign it, you know?
Yes. Well, the JSPA is really for expert group members and spec leads, or, you know, if the spec lead feels like you're making significant code contributions, he or she would ask you to sign the JSPA or a contributor agreement. So it's really up to the spec lead, but it sounds like from what you said in terms of helping with testing and writing documentation in Spanish, that probably isn't something that you would need to sign the JSPA for. If you were actually contributing code or serving on the expert group or helping to write the tests, I would think that the spec lead would ask you to sign the JSPA or at least at the minimum a contributor agreement, but it sounds like Anatole hasn't asked you to do that, and so I think that's probably fine for the contributions that you're doing in terms of testing and documentation help and support and translation.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Well, I think that we don't have any more questions. We really thank you for doing this, Heather. We hope to see you again soon.
Okay, well, I hope to see you at Java 1, and maybe someday I come visit you in Colombia. I've never been to Colombia. I've been to Brazil only one time. So that's been my only exposure to South America. I think I'm going to an event in Mexico in August. One of the Java user groups down there invited me to an event, so I'll be going there.
Oh yeah, Guadalajara Java
I think so. Is that the one? Yes. Yeah. Will you be there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So yeah, keep me in the loop. Let me know about your plans, and if you have an event in the future that you want me to come, make sure you invite me, and I'll try to come meet you in person.
Okay, that will be nice.
Okay. All right. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.